Hello and welcome to the Topher Project. I'm Topher Field, and today I'm talking with someone who is doing what a lot of us want to do. There's been a lot of chatter, and validly so, about the need for someone to prosecute Daniel Andrews. And we've seen time and again his friends in high places covering for him. I've actually dedicated entire videos to exactly that. Well, just the other day, I came across a post from someone who I know reasonably well, and I certainly trust, and my heart skipped a beat, because she said that she is stepping up to do what many of us want to do. But honestly, it's not something I'd be able to do, but she can. And it is Monica Smith, who you may know from Reignite Democracy Australia. You should certainly know from my documentary Battleground Melbourne. Monica, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me again.
Now, Monica, just bring people up to speed very quickly before we actually talk about what you're planning to do next. You're no stranger to the courtroom. You've been prosecuted by Victoria Police. And then what a lot of people may not know is you actually turned the tables on them and you prosecuted them. You represented yourself in court and you won. Can you just briefly tell people that story? Because I think people need to have that as context for what we're about to talk about.
Yes, I've been in a courtroom far too many times than I would like to be honest. But yes, the notable experience that I had was last year. I sued Victoria Police for arresting me 3 times in one day unlawfully. It was a 13-day trial and I represented myself against a team of 4 government lawyers. And I won. 2 out of the 3 arrests were deemed unlawful. Now, the clincher is that I was punished for winning and I was ordered to pay the cost of the other side. However, I'm appealing that. But all of this has really added to my toolbox, which has given me the courage to do what I'm doing now.
So let's talk about what you're doing now. I do want to come back and touch on some of your experience a little bit later, but let's talk about what you're doing now. Many of us have been saying time and time again, someone needs to prosecute Daniel Andrews. It's very clear the Victoria Police are not going to do it. They can't even properly investigate accusations that he may have run somebody over in his car. We certainly can't have any faith in their ability or desire to prosecute him for anything in relation to COVID. So tell me a little bit, because I actually had to look up and confirm for myself that a private individual can actually bring criminal charges. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing, and obviously it's very, very early stages. Let's make that clear from the get-go. But tell me a bit about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the plan is.
Actually, what encouraged me to do this was people like yourself and Rukshan and other people online saying, someone has to do something, someone has to do something. And I sat there and I was like, oh, does it have to be me, really? And you know, I've been grappling with this for years, and I'm still in and out of the court system. And I thought, you know what, I have the right lifestyle for this, and if anyone can assume the risk and take it on, it's me. And not because I'm better than anyone else, but because of my experience. And I've also proven to our community that, you know, I can't be bought, I can't be made a deal with. I'll never be silenced, because I've been up against the threat of more prison time. I've been up against, you know, hundreds of $1,000s worth of costs and loss of all my assets. And at every point I've been able to withstand the fear, not because I'm special, but because I have a gift for this sort of thing. And that's why I'm the right person to do this, because I've proven myself. I'm not, I don't know everything, but I know the right people to ask. And that's really important. So when I decided to do this, I did have a quick conversation with a friend of mine who is a police prosecutor. And
Okay.
this person is very pessimistic, and she will tell me the truth all the time. And I told her about this idea of a private prosecution against Daniel Andrews, and a second had not even gone past when she said, yep, that's the only way to do it. I'll help you. And that really gave me the courage to go all the way, because she's a very high ranking police prosecution, and she knows what's involved with prosecutions. So private prosecution, for those who don't know, it's doing the job of the police basically, but as a citizen or as an entity or an organization. So, you know, Consumer Affairs, when they take someone to court, that's actually a private prosecution. It's not the police doing it, it's an organization doing it. So this is the exact same thing, and the organization doing it will be Reignite Democracy Australia, not Monica Smith. And the reason for that is that Reignite Democracy Australia got, like you did, hundreds of thousands of emails and phone calls and messages from people who were suffering during these times. And it just makes sense that we're the ones prosecuting Daniel Andrews, because we represented all those people, and we still do. So a lot of people online have said, you can't just criminally charge someone. And I'm like, well, actually, you can.
Well, in their defense, I had to look it up as well, just to actually, I mean, I believed you, but I went, really, how do I not know about this? Well, sure enough, I didn't actually know about it. I want to come back to a comment that you made, that you've been tested and you really have had to go through the fire. I want to bring up a couple of specific instances, and I'm sorry if this triggers you in any way, but I remember vividly the time, obviously, that you spent 22 days in prison because you refused to sign the frankly immoral bail conditions that would have required you to shut down your political party and cease all of your opposition to Daniel Andrews' human rights abuses. We can acknowledge yet again that that's actually now a documented fact. You were right. He was a human rights abuser. But what truly impressed me wasn't that first time. It was when they came for your database and they threatened with throwing you in prison if you didn't actually hand over the private contact information of every single person that had ever supported you or signed any of your petitions or these sorts of things. And you were willing to go to prison to defend the private information of the Reignite Democracy database. Now, in the end, thankfully, the police didn't go through with that threat, but you withstood that pressure. Furthermore, when you were suing Victoria Police, they tried to buy you off. They made settlement offers to you, and you refused them all. So, in my opinion, you are absolutely the right person for this job. You've proven yourself to have the integrity to go through with it. The next concern is the skills. The legal system is very arcane. It's very complicated. I think that's on purpose to try and make it less accessible to ordinary people like yourself and myself. So tell me a little bit about the way you're approaching this case. It's going to be important to get the details right. What are you doing to make sure that you go in with the right strategy, you get this prosecution right, and give yourself the best possible chance of success?
And before I go into that, many people might think, why isn't a rich billionaire or a millionaire taking on Daniel Andrews? Well, I just have to put it out there that it is very risky. If you have lots of assets, if you have lots of business interests, you might have the money to do it, but you don't have the lifestyle situation. And I was asking myself that same question. Why is it me? I literally live in a caravan. Why is it me? But like you said before, I've been tested and proven myself, but also I have the support, like I said, of my family and my friends and my community, and I don't have much to lose. It's the fear, when you have mortgages and businesses and things like that, it unfortunately, it kind of ties your hands. And I purposely don't have that. So anyway, moving on in terms of the actual strategy. So I needed a response from the public before I could actually get pay for proper legal advice. I obviously had casual legal advice from friends and people I know, but I was really waiting to see what the response was going to be. And half of me kind of didn't want the response to be that good because then it would get me off the hook, But within we haven't even been 48 hours. I think we're at about 36 hours now. We have about $63,000 raised. Now that is enough for extremely good and thorough legal advice on the prospects of success. Also, they will be able to tell me what the actual charges would be. I have an idea as a non-legal mind what it could be, but obviously you really have to be very careful with this sort of situation. The costs of them to defend themselves. We're going after Daniel Andrews and the 8 cabinet members, including the sitting premier of Victoria. So they will be using a lot of legal funds to defend themselves. So if you lose a case like this, the costs will be, in the potentially tens of millions. The great thing is, though, is that, and again, waiting on paid, proper, professional legal advice, there is a way that you can go after them in their personal capacity, not in their professional capacity, which means that the taxpayers are not going to foot the bill. And, it's also really interesting to note for people who don't know much about the legal system is that there is no payout if we win this case. There's nothing, there's not going to be millions of dollars coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. And that's what I love about this is that we can get exactly what we need for this country, for this state of Victoria to mend from what happened. Is we just need justice. And there's a lot of people who obviously lost loved ones to suicide, lost businesses and things like that. And some of those most iconic stories will be able to speak their story in the courtroom as a witness to prove the damages done by these people. And what I think really triggered me is not actually as much Daniel Andrews, but Jacinta Allen. She's a current leader of Victoria, and she was a part of this, and she won't even answer questions about it. And we're just so sick and tired of the I don't recall statement. But if you criminally charge these people, the best case scenario is that we win and they all go to jail, okay? But let's be realistic. Okay, it's going to be a cat fight. It's going to be long. It's going to be expensive. The I guess what I'm hoping to achieve from this is actually just public scrutiny. Public
Mm.
sins deserve public vindication. And if we can get those 8 people on the stand and watch them, shake in their boots, having to explain themselves, that might be enough for justice. Who knows? But you really have to manage your expectations on something like this. We quite possibly could lose. But what we get in the meantime is closure, and also the fastness of being able to get access to documents. Now, that email that came out on Easter Sunday took David Davis, through Freedom of Information, took him 4.5 years to get this one email. Now, a trial, the documents have to be released much sooner than that, and it's a lot easier to get access to things. So I'm really excited to see what else we find. It's just the tip of the iceberg.
There's so much that I love about this, not just that, Daniel Andrews might end up in prison. Well, that's the dream scenario. That's the Hollywood ending. But as you rightly point out, we can't predict what the outcome is going to be with any confidence. But there are a few things we can say with confidence. Firstly, the fact that you're looking to hold him accountable in a private capacity, not in his capacity as Premier of Victoria. That is so important. And anyone that's been following my work for a long time will know that I've talked regularly about the fact that things will not start to get better until the criminals start to lose their houses, lose their marriages, lose their own money. For as long as the taxpayer is on the hook to make payouts on behalf of them because they only got sued and found guilty in a public capacity, that's not going to be good enough. So I love that. Secondly, this prospect of the information that's going to come out is really powerful and very, very exciting from my point of view, because we know there's a lot of skeletons in the closet. We know that there's a lot of sins that they would like to keep covered up, and a court case like this is going to make it hard for them to do that. But also, you and I each have our own separate stories, but one thing that we definitely have in common is that we both know that the process is the punishment. Being dragged through the process is the punishment. And I love the idea that Daniel Andrews might have to face potentially years of being dragged through the actual process itself. Can you make one promise to me though, Monica?
Yes, maybe.
Yes, maybe. I like that. Don't make promises until you know what they are. Can you do everything in your power to try and get the documentary Battleground Melbourne entered into evidence so that the entire court has to sit there and watch it with Daniel Andrews in the room?
I tried to do that last time, but I just couldn't. I actually physically tried, and I was kind of smirking at the same time, like, I know this isn't going to work. But, it's had a mention in court, and you got to start somewhere. Jokes aside, though, I want to make it really clear that the most important thing about this is that whoever runs this case, which is me right now, is you can't take a deal, because people like Daniel Andrews, they have millions and millions of dollars. They're going to offer me, if this goes as far as I want it to go, they're going to offer me tens of millions of dollars to shut my mouth. And that is why we never see justice, because people take deals, and I can't judge them because I don't know their situation. But I just don't really care about money. So you're never going to have to worry about that with me. And what I love about this as well is I'm really taking the people along the ride with me. So everything is going to be published, not strategically, of course, but it's really going to be a community effort, because I cannot do it without the prayers and the support of people on the sidelines, or else, it's going to be a huge emotional overload for me. So I'm going to need support from afar and from close by. But there will be some fun moments, and there will be some terrible moments. And, I don't know if you were going to ask about this, but, people who understand the legal system might say, well, the DPP can take over the case and squash it and things like that. But don't worry, I'm getting all the legal advice around that. And they can't take over the case unless they have a good reason to. So we're gonna have to prepare for all of that.
Look, we know they're going to try and play games. You're absolutely right. Daniel Andrews has money and he has friends in high places, and he's going to try every single trick in the book. But I do not know anyone better placed than yourself to be the face of this campaign. And I love the fact that you are determined to go and get really good advice. As the book of Proverbs tells us, in the abundance of counselors, there is safety, and get lots of advice before you wage war. And that is exactly what you're doing. And I say more strength to your arm. If people wanted to support you, to find out more, to follow you along this journey, obviously I plan to touch base with you regularly along this journey, as often as is needed, to keep my audience up to date. But if people wanted to follow you personally, tell them where they can find you. And if they wanted to contribute to this fundraiser to help you get that initial nest egg, and can I say to anyone watching, Monica has a fantastic history when it comes to things that she has fundraised for, up to and including refunding all the money back to her donors when a court case hasn't gone ahead. And like I said, risking prison to protect the contact information of her supporters. So I will be personally chipping in and supporting doing what I can, and I would urge others to do the same. But if someone did want to do that, Monica, where would they find you?
So reignitedemocracy.com.au. Subscribe so that you can keep up to date. If you can't afford to chip in, you can chip in there if you want as well. And also, I understand some people would be, a little bit dubious, like, oh, this sounds like too big of a task. Who do you think you are to pull this off? Like, you're crazy. And it takes crazy people to try things like this. And I think
Yes, it
some
does.
people will be keeping their hands on their wallets until they start to see some progress. And I completely respect and understand that. So just hold on for a few weeks. And when you start to see things eventuating, then you can cough up then. But happy for you to help now as well. We have enough to really get the ball rolling. So, but it's going to need like a lot more, obviously, but one thing at a time. And to be honest, Topher, if I stop getting public support, I'll have to pull out. But I just, my family say that I'm a fire set ready person. So I fire first and then I get ready later. And, I'm going to keep doing that and we'll see how it goes.
Well, if I may be so bold, I think there's an interesting comparison. As I read your post that alerted me to the fact that you were going through with this, my mind went back to when I realised that someone needed to make a documentary about Battleground Melbourne, about what had happened down in Melbourne. And of course, that was inspired by the incredible courage of the teachers, the nurses, the truckies and the families that were continuing to protest in their own small ways, even after the shooting at the shrine had taken place. And I went, someone's got to tell this story. And I began to think about who does that someone have to be? What skills do they need? What context? What connection to the story? And I realized if I didn't do it, then there really was no one else in that ideal place. Not to say that other people can't make good documentaries, but that combination of having been in the thick of it, knowing the story, knowing the people, being trusted by them, having the background and the history in television and making documentaries, having an audience that could crowdfund it for me to make it financially possible. You go through all the list of things, the attributes that you need in order to do something like making Battleground Melbourne. And I realized it's got to be me. And I think this has a similar sort of touch of destiny about it for you. Think about who someone needs to be in order to be able to run a court case like this. And Monica, I think whether you like it or not, you've kind of been touched by destiny, and this is the next thing for you to do.
It's really strange. It was Lent recently. I'm a Catholic, and I specifically prayed for some direction and some purpose. And every time I pray for that, oh my gosh, it slaps me in the face. And I tell you, I'm going to be more careful what I pray for. But no, sometimes it is you, and if not you, who? And I've been waiting around for someone to do this, someone with lots of money and things like that, and this hasn't happened. So here we are.
Well, more strength to you, Monica. I plan to touch base with you regularly, keep my audience up to date. I'll put the URL for people to be able to find you in the description of this video, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for joining me on the Topher Project.
Thanks. We'll see you soon.